overcoming poverty, burning off stress, paying attention with ADHD, building a career, beating a painful genetic disorder. After 13 years of helping others do the same, fitness became a foundation for my life's greatest gift and challenge, becoming a father. My name's Alex Van Houten, and I believe that what I eat, how I move, and what habits I live by are the rock upon which I build my physical, psychological, and spiritual well-being. And whatever I do will rub off on my kids and my community. Welcome to Defining Dad Bod, where we work to untangle the messy knots of the health and fitness industry as if your children's lives depended on it. Because they do. This is where we decide to make our bodies stand for something bigger than ourselves. This is where we find practical wisdom to live by, one powerful conversation at a time. May the words spoken here inspire you to keep moving forward no matter where you are. Who knows who you could be if you could become 1% better every single day.
We can do the show thanks to the support of listeners just like you. For more information how you can become part of the inner circle, go to findingdadbod.com/inner circle. That's definingdadbod.com/inner circle.
What's up, guys? This is Alex Van Houten with Defining Dad Bod. I hope you're doing well. Today's episode is a powerful one. We get to hang out with Yegor Adamovich, and he could probably reach out and tell you how to say that better. In fact, he gives me a little lesson in how best to pronounce his name, and despite my best efforts, I still mess it up. However, today's show is about the fundamentals of progressing with your program. And whether you're a beginner or somebody who's been working for their own personal physical fitness for a long period of time, I think this show will give you some interesting things to think about to help you get started and stick to a program, or to make some changes to your current program that might keep things fresh and interesting for you. One thing I want to say before you listen to this interview is that there are several times during the interview where Yegor and I are explicitly talking about somebody who's beginning a program, and how it's important to parse down their program to the fundamental, most important things they could get moving on today. And it's not till the end of the interview that Yegor clarifies how his philosophy and methodology might differ if he's working with a trained client who understands and is excited by many things in the gym setting. So with that being said, get excited. This interview with the Soviet samurai is a fun one. A quick note before we get there, several of you reached out to me last week to wish my sister Jessie the best in her upcoming exam for the police force. She was on the show 2 weeks ago talking about her 60-pound weight loss goal and talked us through her journey to redefine mom bod. It was a lot of fun to have her on, and I appreciated the show's support from a few of you who took the opportunity to reach out. An update: she passed her PT test with flying colors and ran the dreaded 1.5 miles in 13:30, which is a huge accomplishment compared to what she did last year when she did the exact same exam. Now she's staring her competency exam in the face, and we wish her the best of luck in performing well on tasks like percentages, reading comprehension, and a bunch of other stuff that you probably haven't done since high school. We'll keep you posted. And thanks again for reaching out. And a quick final note before the interview: if you haven't already and you're interested, you have 2 more weeks to register for the upcoming Testosterone and Thyroid Mastermind. I've done this a few times before, so I'm not going to belabor it, to help you make some changes to your program and see better results, particularly in the area of fat loss and muscle gain in a sustainable way. Again, that's definingdadbod.com/shop/hormone mastermind. I look forward to seeing you there. Now let's get to my conversation with Yegor Adamovich as we get back to the fundamentals of awesome training. What's up, guys? This is Alex Van Houten with Defining Dad Bod. I'm super excited to hang out with you today. I am joined by the one and only Soviet samurai, or at least that's his handle on Instagram if you want to connect to him. What's up, Yegor? How are you, brother?
Hey, man. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this. It's a few weeks in the making, but I'm here and I'm pumped to rock and roll.
So we're going to have an awesome conversation today about the old school versus new school. We're going to talk about simplifying your workouts and making them more effective. We're going to celebrate the foundations of what brings us into health and fitness as trainers and actually achieves results, minus some of the interesting fads we see nowadays. But before we get there, I wanted to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and tell a little bit about your superhero origin story to our listeners. I have to try this once on the show. Yegor Adamovich. Is that how we say it?
That is absolutely perfect. I mean, my mom doesn't say it better than that.
Nice. What brings you into the training industry? And then what makes you passionate about what you're doing that we'll be talking about today?
Okay, so I guess I'll go as far back as listeners need to hear. The reason I'm a Soviet samurai is because I was actually born in USSR, right, 1989. So that's just at the tail end of it. So I can't really say I lived in the USSR. I mean, not consciously, really, for the 2 years I sort of existed there.
Sure.
But I definitely grew up there. And for the first 19 years of my life, it's sort of like this post-USSR Russia, right? And so I think there I learned some of the strategies that those guys use when they train, some of the mental aspects, especially the mindset. What helped me get into the fitness space was the fact that I was overweight. As far as I can remember, I was actually going the other day through my pictures. I was doing this Marie Kondo decluttering stuff and found my old album, and I knew, like, grade 1, it looked like maybe kindergarten. I can already tell I was way overweight. I'm looking at it, I have a belly and everything. So at the time I didn't know it, but as I was going through the pictures, I realized, wow, up until I was 16 years old, I was just always this heavy kid, so to speak. Right. And as a heavy kid, in school, that's how kids are. They always sort of, I don't want to say make fun of you, but you're sort of left a little bit not on the cool kids team, so to speak.
There's a reason the School of Hard Knocks is not the College of Hard Knocks, right?
There you go.
Words are hard knocks for sure.
So basically, growing up, to make up for, I didn't realize that diet could really help you get in shape. So I just got into sports. So for me, soccer was always it, and we played all the time. And as the years went on, I sort of started observing people who started to motivate me. And one of those people for me was my grandfather. He was a guy who's in the Navy. He was born in the 34. So he was there for the World War in the German-occupied Russia. And I mean, he was a tough guy. He was a tough customer. He went to the Navy and served for, I think, 5.5 years, jumping off ships and swimming in super cold water. And so he sort of, when he retired, he continued his fitness journey. And at the time, I remember watching him and going, what are you doing? And he would do chin-ups, and he would wake up in the morning pretty much at 3 a.m. and go swimming in the river. So it's super cold water. And he would start in March. So as soon as the ice starts moving, he's out there swimming, and he would swim up well into November. And then in the winter, he would ski. He would go 12 kilometers each way almost every day to the village to visit his sister. He didn't have a car. That was the way to do it in his 70s. And, so watching guys like him really inspired me. Right? And so when he passed away, he left some equipment, and the equipment was simple. It was a 16 kilograms kettlebell that I painted orange. It looked cool, so I just spray painted it. He had one of those things, these cars that serve that work on rail. So basically, it's one of those things that allows a truck to go on rails where the train goes. So he had one of those things that he borrowed, let's put it this way, from somewhere, and then he cut it in half, so he shortened it, created a barbell. It really was a set of wheels. And so that was a barbell, and then I had a punching bag. And so actually preparing for this interview, I realized, well, I had a garage gym before garage gyms were cool,
Yeah. Garage gym,
Yeah, that's it. This was the OG garage gym that I sort of made. It was weird. And so I sort of started lifting, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I sort of tried to mimic what I remembered he was doing. And those were my original old school garage workouts, had the doors open. And it was a lot of fun. And so some of the guys started watching me, and they started following sort of my routine. And before I knew it, I remember when I went for the summer break when I was a kid, and I just started doing kickboxing. My fitness coach, like a PE teacher in the school, I couldn't do one chin up. I just couldn't even do one. I couldn't run. I couldn't do anything. And that was sort of, in Russia, we would do the test in front of everybody. So it was sort of embarrassing.
Sure.
And when I came back, so after 3 months break, I could knock 20 chin-ups. I could run 5K, no problem. And I realized, wow, I sort of got fit just over the summer. And I continued that was, 15 years ago. So I sort of continued that as the years went on, and when we got to Canada 11 years back, and I gained a lot of weight because I discovered Cheerios. We don't have cereal in Russia, so it was new. I was drinking, my lunch would be 2 cans of Coke, one of those granola bars, sweet and salty. They say it's healthy. It's not. And, Jell-O and Wonder Bread. And so I gained 60 pounds in 2 years. None of it was muscle. I didn't work out.
Sure.
And so then I had to learn how to lose weight intelligently eventually. And once I did it, to sort of fast forward, I realized, wow, maybe I can help people do this, because I sort of thought fitness was there through all my life at the time. And so I've been working as a trainer over 8 years now, more full-time.
I love that. And would you say that your primary modus operandi is that kind of the strongman modalities, or are you working more with the weight loss, body composition type clients?
It is 100% weight loss. Now, I train BJJ myself, so some of those guys would be athletes. I help them out in the gym. But for the most part, I'm really passionate about just everyday humans, because I think they actually have the most challenges.
Well, sure. And you said you weren't exposed to Cheerios, Wonder Bread, and Jell-O until, Canada. A lot of us have been hanging out in this all our lives, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Well, man, I know how it feels. Let me tell you.
Lots of adjustments to be made there. So we'll dive into some of your training philosophy and stuff there. But I wanted to hone in on something that I think will speak pretty powerfully to parents, because you and I share something similar in our background. And it's that when I learned to work out proper, right? Because I did martial arts and stuff in my past, and I ran and whatnot. But I remember, I'll never forget, I was 13 years old. And I was helping this guy who employed me at the time, kind of paid me under the table in cash,
Yes.
It really bit me in the butt when I learned how to pay taxes. I was like, oh man, like they take a whole chunk of your paycheck. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Anyway, somebody had left 2 25-pound dumbbells and a set of barbells, like 100 pounds or so. And I brought those home, and that's what I had to work out with for like 4 years.
Yes.
That was it, like dumbbells and a barbell. And so it's funny, I'll have clients come to me and they'll say, all I have is a few dumbbells at home and a mat. I'm like, fantastic. Like there's very few things that we're going to need to add to that until you reach a certain level of fitness, because not to say that having the gym equipment's not nice, but you can do some amazing things with your body weight and maybe a few external sources. So we'll get into that. And I like that we both kind of originated there, because it's just amazing what you can do with a pull-up bar, a barbell, and a dumbbell, and maybe a punching bag, right?
Oh, 100%. And I mean, I'll tell you, to really make it old school and to add some Russian spice to it, sometimes I would go, my original farmer's walk would be, so we had no running water growing up, right? And so I had to go to the well to bring the water. And well was quite a distance away. So it's actually a little tip. I mean, if any of you guys live in the village, it is 1,000% easier, or if you're camping, to carry 2 buckets of water than it is 1. Right. So I just would go and carry those buckets of water. And sometimes if you have to take a shower, I would have to make 3 or 4 trips in a row to have enough water. So imagine this farmer walk for like half a kilometer. And then I figured out, hey, maybe I can use some of the bucket exercise. And you can actually do some quite cool, and they'll be the original, what are those called? Clubs? Yeah. That's a new movement. So I would swing the bucket as people would swing clubs. And so I mean, you can use anything. You
can definitely use anything with a little bit of stubborn grit and consistency.
That's it. And as a teenager, you have enough of that.
That's right. Probably way more than you need. Or at least that was I beat my head against several brick walls personally.
Yes, 100%.
So let's talk through some of the things that you're passionate about, given your background and whatnot. One of the things that you're really passionate about, and something that'll resonate really well with the parents that generally listen to the show, is the idea of training smarter. Now, I hear this a lot, and it's something that I talk about a lot on social media. It's well, Alex, you only train like 5 hours a week, plus or minus some.
Sure.
I might have a training cycle where I'm like 8 to 10 hours tops, unless, I don't know, I get a wild hair and I want to run a marathon. That doesn't happen much. Happened once. Anyway, so about 5 hours is pretty average for me. So when people come to my consultations and stuff, they'll say, well, I'm a busy parent, but I'm going to try to find time to do this and stuff. And I'll be like, hey, I'm going to ask you to start with about 3 hours a week, and we might progress to 5 to 6. And they're like, that's way less time than I thought we would be spending exercising. Like, I thought I'd have to do 2 hours a day. I'd have to do 2-a-days and stuff. I'm like, there's a lot of intelligence to good programming. And I wanted to have a discussion with you about some of the things, some of the smart points that people are missing out on when it comes to making their workout programs intelligent. So let's talk about that. I understand you've got like a top 10 things you're doing wrong in your program that you like to talk to your clients about. What would you bring to the table there?
Oh, that's perfect. That's awesome segue. Yeah, so I just wrote down that sort of the 10 common mistakes that I see people make in their training. Maybe, and also you just sort of mentioned could be 10. Some of those are assumptions. Right. And because you just said it perfectly, I have a lot of people the same way. They think they need to do 20 hours a week for them to even just lose a pound a week.
It's a freaking part-time job, man.
Yeah, that's it. That's I think maybe it looks like, and I think that's one of the points that I'll get to, but it has to do with these days social media, right? You see people, they always put their best foot forward, and I think that's what people don't realize. And they start comparing, people start comparing their before, which is right now, with somebody's like yourselves after.
Right.
I mean, you've been in the game for how long? 14 years as a trainer, correct?
Yeah, 20,000 hours in my own personal health and fitness. That's a lot of time.
That's it. So somebody will look at you and say, wow, how come I don't have abs like Alex? What's wrong with me? Maybe my program that I started 2 weeks ago isn't working. I got to change things up, Right. So I'll just touch on those mistakes. And the first one that I see for the most part is people either don't set goals at all or they don't know how to set goals properly. So over the years, I developed this sort of goal setting system that I took from multiple people I worked with and some of my mentors. The goal setting system that makes a big goal like losing 100 pounds seem very, very simple. Because if you look at, say, somebody wants to lose 100 pounds, I mean, that's a huge number. If I wake up this morning and I say, man, I need to lose 100 pounds, I just don't even want to get out of bed, to be honest with you.
It's overwhelming. I think that's heavier than 100 pounds, to be honest.
Oh, absolutely, because you're not even going to take any action. If you think I need to run a marathon and I'm just starting to walk, I'm going, this is crazy. I mean, there's no way I'm doing it. So there's a way to break it down. So the system I teach my clients is very simple. You must take your time to sit down and take a blank piece of paper and you write everything that comes to your head in terms of physical fitness that you want to achieve or what you think physical fitness is. What is health? So you might write things like, I want to have a six-pack. That's number one. Always. Everybody has number one, right? I want to have a six-pack. Or I want to run a marathon. Or I want to squat X number of pounds, or I want to be able to play with my kids when I'm older, or I want to live till 100. So just do just crazy brainstorm session and let it take time. Don't just put surface goals because the first 2 or 3 things are just going to be the surface goals. They're not going to really have any meaning once you look at them later. Right? So then what I recommend you do is you write that list and you walk away for half an hour or for a couple of days. Then you come back and you reassess that list and you see, okay, wow, out of those maybe 15 things that you wrote down, really 3 or 4 are going to be the main ones because the rest is going to be the same. You might say, I want to have a six-pack and I want to have X, 5% body fat, whatever, right, as a male. Those are kind of the same things in a way.
Sure.
So you'll cross some of those out, so you'll be left with about 3 or 4 things. Then eventually you'll figure out when you look long enough, there'll be one overarching goal. And so, for example, for me, it's longevity. For somebody might be looking really good. For somebody might be able to run a marathon and have great endurance. Perfect. So what you do is you write that goal and you circle it. And from there, what you need to do, let's say your goal is to run a marathon. So in order to run a marathon, you do this little tree chart or a flower chart, I think it's called. Run a marathon in the middle. What do you need to do? Well, I need to run at least 3 times a week. I mean, that it has to happen, right? Then I need to eat healthy because I need to proper nutrition. So I need to maybe learn about nutrition or just start implementing some of those strategies, right? From there, I need to maybe join a gym or hire a trainer And so you'll end up with about 6 or 7 little steps that eventually what you do is you narrow them down to 4. And this number is very important because what I found through my training, if people have 5 or 6 things to worry about, they don't necessarily follow through. You end up with 4 action steps that are the most important things. And then what you do is you just put them in your calendar and you work that in. And so all of a sudden, say the goal is to lose 100 pounds, you book your workouts in and you have, 5 workouts a week or 3 workouts a week, right? Or maybe he's just waking up and doing the 20-minute ab circuit that you can find on YouTube that it won't give you abs, but it's a workout. And then from there, you'll improve your nutrition. And all those action steps are so easy to do that if you just focus on doing them every day for X number of months, next thing you know, you'll be like, wow, I'm already 50 pounds down. So now it's easy, right? Waking up in the morning and thinking that you have to work out for 30 minutes today is easier than thinking that you have to lose 100 pounds, isn't it?
That's exactly right. And I want to comment on 2 things you said there that I think is really important. First, when you say, hey, one of the things that people do wrong is they don't have a vision or a goal for their program. And let me know if you think this way as well. But I find that when I talk to people, there's a big cloud of things. That's kind of what you talked about in writing down what they think about physical fitness. There's a big cloud of things that kind of surround the goal, but it's united under one umbrella. And that process gives you a priority and a benchmark, which says, hey, this is the most important thing to me. And this is the thing I'm going to measure myself against. So you say, I want to lose 100 pounds. You can't measure yourself against whether or not you've lost 100 pounds until quite a while in the future.
Yes.
But every single day you can measure yourself against those 4 things that you talked about, right? So this process simplifies it, but it also gives you a standard to judge yourself by.
Yes.
And then the other thing you said that I think is really important is when it comes to making progressive health and fitness changes, if you can't achieve what it is you've set out to achieve this week, then you're probably reaching for goals that are too big for you at the moment.
Yes.
And you said it really, really well when you said, hey man, 5 days a week. Okay, 4 days a week. Heck, even 3 days a week. You want to lose 100 pounds? It's probably possible that you haven't been exercising consistently 3 days a week for a very long time, right? So not putting everybody in that blanket statement. Some people really struggle with this weight loss thing, but it's very possible. So when we talk about goals, I'm reminded of a guy I worked with who exercising 5 days a week was a scary thing to him. He was about 150 pounds was his weight loss goal. Exercising 5 days a week was a scary thing for him. Changing a bunch of things in his nutrition, he wasn't ready for all that either. And one of the things that we settled on, we had 3 things that we were working toward. One of the things we settled on is, hey, this week, every single day, just put on your running shoes. I don't even care what you do after that. You come home from work, you put on your running shoes. I don't care what you do after that. And next week he comes in and I'm like, how'd that go? He goes, I put on my running shoes every single day. And you know what's weird? I put on my running shoes. I went for a walk like 4 different times. I have them on, mine as well.
Yes.
And so it's a progressive momentum, right? And so the next week I was like, okay, so our new goal, not only put on our running shoes, but let's go for a walk 4 out of 7 days this week and see how that goes, right?
Yes.
And so you progressively reach toward goals that lead to your bigger goal. But what you're talking about here is acknowledging that the vision's a big one.
Yes.
And then breaking it up into things that are actionable every single day. Is that about right?
100%. I mean, I always say to my clients, listen, if you think about you need to lose 50 or 100 pounds, like we said, it's overwhelming. But what if I said you need to have a handful of kale every morning, right? I mean, that's easy. People always say, well, is that it? Yes. What about having a bottle of water on your desk? I mean, just have that. And as we go, like you mentioned, the goals, next thing you know, you're drinking 2 bottles of water. Next thing you know, you're drinking 10 bottles. Well, maybe not that many, but the thing is,
being a lot.
That's it. Next thing you know, you go to the grocery store and you buy all the kale they have by the truckload. But the truth is, they will add up and they will become part of your life rather than you're looking up to something that's just impossible.
Absolutely. I can't understate the goal setting process and then chunking that is what we call it into action items in the relative future. What are a couple other things that you see that people are doing wrong as approaching their program?
Yeah. So when it comes to just being in touch with their body, I think is important. And it's harder at the beginning, but I think they don't listen to their body. And it goes back to the goal setting. But one of the best advice I ever got was from a friend of mine who said, I said, dude, how do you train? And this guy was in amazing shape. And I was a trainer at the time, but he was just at the next level. And I said, dude, what's your program? I mean, what are your days off? What are your sets? What are your reps? And he said to me something, actually, by the way, that I did not get until years later. I remembered it, but I didn't understand it. And he said, I just listened to my body. And I was like, okay, dude, whatever. Just, you don't want to share your information with me. You know, don't have to be, right? So I said, that's okay. But years later, when I figured it out, and now I share it with my clients, is you do have to differentiate between your brain telling you something and your body telling you something, right? And it's harder with a lot of incoming signals. For example, if your diet is really, really poor, there's no way your body differentiates where good iron comes from or where you need calcium from. But once your diet's been good for a while, I believe that your body, much like a pregnant woman, will let you know. Sometimes, you crave fish. Every once in a while, when you don't have it for a while, your body will let you know. Same for the workouts. I believe that if I'm beat, for example, last week, I was going hard, sort of getting back into the routine. And I realized that one day I had this program laid out for me and I wanted to do it at the gym. And I got to the gym and I just didn't have it. And I tried to push through it. And my body's just saying, dude, what are you doing? So all I did, I stopped, I went home, I got great sleep, and I woke up and I crushed the next day's workout. So I believe that you have to listen to it. Now, there's a difference between your brain signal and your body signal, because your brain is a little bit different. Your brain is going to say, hey, dude, what are you doing? I mean, don't push too hard on this bench press. I mean, what do you think I am, right? Take it easy. Netflix shows are on, right? So it's important to figure the difference there. But I think, much like you mentioned, you go, put your running shoes on, get out, start walking, see how you feel. Hey, listen, if you feel great, maybe you'll run. If you feel terrible and you set out for a run, then maybe you just walk.
So while you're talking, I think of some of the things that I like to tell my clients, and that is when you're in the training process, you start to develop your own inner coach,
yes,
which is the person who tells you when what you're doing is stupid, and the person who tells you when what you're doing probably should continue or even be more intense, right? And so, like with a deconditioned client, somebody who's just starting their workout program, they're untrained and stuff, their body, many times, they haven't been listening to their body for years.
Yes.
So all of a sudden, when they start exercising, if they did start listening to their body, it's like, hey, don't do that. That's dumb. This hurts and it doesn't feel good.
Yes.
Like, all right, that's when you need me. That's when you need the outer coach to be like, hey, we got this. I know it sucks, but hang with me.
Yes.
It'll get better. But then you progress to a point where not only is your body becoming conditioned, but you're also starting to gain mastery over yourself. And as you develop that inner coach, that intuitive understanding of how hard you can push, whether or not you should continue, do you need rest, should you eat something, all of those things, you start to get some internal signals. And you're 100% right about that. If you are in tune with your body on that level, it leads to the road of injury every time, first of all. And then second of all, I just had this with a young woman I did a consultation with this morning. She does CrossFit. Well, I say young woman. She's actually older than me, but I'm not going to reveal her age on here. Anyway.
She was 29.
She's 29. Yeah. She's got 3 kids. She's been doing CrossFit for 2 years. She's actually pretty well conditioned shape, but she's like, it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't match me. I don't know. And so we did a workout this morning and she can't actively fire like 7 different muscle groups. I'm like, hey, use this muscle. She's like, what's that muscle? Where's it connected? I'll jab her in the lat while she's doing a lat pull down. She's like, oh, that's okay. I got it. Haven't been using that in a while.
Yes.
Anyway, as far as listening to her body's concerned, she's been doing workouts, hardcore 3-5 day a week kind of workout programs, but her mind hasn't been in herself, if that makes sense. It's just
that makes total sense.
Do it just like that, mimic the movements and stuff. And so now she's starting to put her mind where her muscles are. She's starting to see that there's other things that we can do that don't have to be so intense and mindless all the time. So great advice from somebody that doesn't even know they gave it to you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's perfect. Yeah, and I just realized it years later. I remember the day when I realized. I was like, oh man, that's what he was talking about.
You got it.
But he was, of course, advanced. He's been training since he was 14 years old at the time, and at the time we spoke, he's been training for maybe 10 years. So I was way behind.
Now I imagine if people want to get connected with you, because this list continues, but we have something I want to talk about too here about how we simplify our training programs and make those better rather than doing all these fancy fad stuff that's out there, right? So if people want to get in touch with this list, they can find it at Yegor
Adamovich.
.com. I have that link below because I don't want to mess it up. So people can check it out in the show notes and the URL for this page. But tell me a little bit more about some of the ways that you're helping people simplify their workout programs. Because one of the things I know you preach is that simple is better, or the keep it simple, stupid method.
That's it. Yes,
those weren't your words, but somebody else says that pretty often, and I think I've had a few people on the show that like to refer to that. But it's a tough concept in our day and age where it seems like we overcomplicate things that could be quite a bit more simple. An example might be, I had somebody ask me about their cardio and a heart rate monitor, and they're like, what's my zone? Does it need to be 147? That's the right amount of cardio, or does it need to be 144? And what's the difference? I'm like, we're talking about 3 beats, man. Like, we're talking about 3 beats difference. And honestly, that's not what we were training for. We were training for, base fundamental aerobic cardiovascular endurance. And anyway, this person was just complicating it so much. I'm like, dude, listen to your music, go run, and then send me the data afterward. I'll tell you whether or not you did it too hard, right? They're like, 147. Oh no, I better walk. So let's talk about this a little bit. What points are you advising people on simplifying their programs to get better results?
That's perfect. Actually, that's an awesome point. And yeah, you're right. A lot of people just make it so complicated. They're focused on the minutia, the things like sets, the things like reps. They're looking for a perfect program. And what happens is, it's almost like paralysis by analysis situation where you spend most of your time looking at what's best and figuring it out. And instead, you should get out there and what I call settling for B- work and just doing it, right? The expression one of my mentors says, you don't have to get it right, you just have to get it going. Because the truth is, you will be steered onto the right path once you start. But unless you start, there's no way. There's a story. There are 2 people. Imagine 2 people. They want to lose 50 pounds each. One says, okay, I'm going to find the best trainer there is, and I'm going to research, and I'm going to find the best program, the best diet, the best everything. And for the next 12 weeks, they just do a research. And at the end of it, they have the perfect trainer, the best trainer, Alex, right? Shameless plug in there. That's right. And so he knows the exact program. They know everything about keto. They're ready to go on that diet. But yet they haven't lost a pound. While the other person in the same 12 weeks just said, listen, I'm going to call the gym, and I'm going to enter the gym. I'm going to get a membership, and I'm going to start walking to the gym and working out. And then 12 weeks, they may have lost 30 of the 50 pounds that they need. So the first step in simplifying the program is actually doing something, right? Stop analyzing, right? The second thing is we already talked about is use what's around you, right? Actually, everybody has a gym. It's just go outside. That is the gym number 1. That's all you need, right? Go outside, start walking. Use some old equipment that you have. You can purchase a TRX or borrow it, right? That is super simple. Go hiking, go sprinting. Use the nature around you. You can get in quite a good shape without lifting any weights. Push-ups, they're free. Sit-ups are free. Body weight squats are free, right? So start using that. And I think by doing body weight training, by doing training outside, you'll be play tennis. I mean, to me, that's one of the best sports there is. Join a volleyball team, play soccer, just get out there and do something rather than thinking about it and creating the perfect program, perfect routine, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you said something at the very beginning of this, paralysis by analysis, which is something that happens a lot in the information age. I can Google best diet and I'm going to get 5 billion hits, and I could spend the next 3 years of my life trying to become an expert in what everybody online is saying. Or I could look at my current diet and say, what do I know I should stop doing that's really dumb for me and I'm willing to stop doing that I should stop doing? And what can I start that I should start, that I'm willing to start, that I could start tomorrow, and then do that. Start with that, right? So I'd like to draw just kind of an important line in here, because you and I speak the same training language. There's a difference between somebody who's just working to start the journey versus somebody who is working to put some of the fine-tuned touches on their program. In which case, sets, reps, tempo, time under tension, that's what the heck Yegor and I went to school for.
That's it.
That's why we have certifications. That's why sports science exists. But for the people are listening who are like, there's something I've been meaning to start working on, and I don't have all of the right information and knowledge and programs in place. What I hear you saying is simplify the program down to the thing that matters most and start that now.
Absolutely. 100%.
And you'll learn more hours toward the goal is not going to be hours wasted.
That's perfect segue, because I'm going to talk about the 6 movements that you really only need to do, in my experience from working with all the people that I worked with, that make all this complicated program design very simple.
Yeah, bring it. I want to hear that, because that's extremely important.
Yeah, so there's just 6 movements in my experience that you must perform, and everything else stems from there. And so I'm going to give you a few examples, right? So the movements are your push, right? Everybody knows that. So that would be either an overhead press or kettlebell press or flat press, right? Push or dip as well as a push movement. You got your pull movement, which is your pull up or your row variation, right? And every single exercise for your back is going to be a pull movement in one way or the other, right? So if you learn how to row, just a simple seated row, everybody knows that exercise. And if you learn the simple mechanics behind it, or TRX row, that would be my favorite, you can do any exercise once you learn the principles behind that movement. So we got your push, you got your pull, you got your lunge, you got your hinge, your twist, and your carry. Now you'll notice I left squat out, and it's because from the years of my training, from the people I worked with, I get a lot of people who are sort of down the line, so to speak. They're on the second, hopefully better part of their life, but they're past 50.
Sure.
And unfortunately, due to their habits and behaviors, their job nature, a lot of people I found had a real struggle with squats. But what I found that every single person, all the way up to 86-year-old that I train, shout out to Norm, the guy is a legend. He probably is going to listen to this, and he could do lunges, no problem. And we were able to work into some serious variations and strengthen his legs greatly, to the point where when he did need to squat in real life, which is like a perfect squat aside from the toilet. So, I mean, for lack of a better term, we don't necessarily do. But lunge is performed all the time. So now that's not to say that squats shouldn't be performed. I love squats, goblet squats, absolutely. But I just found that it's an easy entry point. You don't need to do hours of mobility work and hours of stretching to be able to lunge. You can just lunge. Anybody can.
Especially under load, right? Like,
that's it.
Squats and lunges. Squats are quite a bit more technical under load in my experience than a lunge is. Yeah.
That's it.
And that's interesting because, I didn't come to the movement-based side of training. You and I are from similar schools of thought in that respect. I didn't come to the movement-based level of training until maybe 5 or 6 years into my career. As I remember when I first started writing programs, I wrote it kind of like a bodybuilder. Like there's back day. I want to hit lats and rear delts and lower traps and upper traps, back day. And then there's chest day, and that's minor and major pectoralis and maybe some little bit of triceps in there, because that's important. And then you got
don't forget the flies, buddy. That's important too.
Yeah. And
pec deck.
Got to get the pec deck done, and you really got to squeeze in there to get those.
Oh, I got to squeeze.
Yeah, I got to squeeze it, man. Squeeze it hard. Hold it for 3 seconds every time. All right. Anyway, so and then you get the legs, and you have way more muscle groups in your legs. Your quad is a quad for a reason. And anyway,
yes.
So I remember programming, and I made a list of all the muscles, and I made sure that my programs incorporated all of those at one point in time. You call that like a lit program, right? And then it was about 5 years later, I was trying to incorporate the NASM school of thinking, stabilization, strength, endurance, hypertrophy, and stuff into that kind of model. And it was like, how do I help somebody who only has 2 days a week or 3 days a week?
Yes.
Because it's tough to like put 30 exercises in someone's program. Okay, in 2 hours, you'll hit every muscle group, I promise. But
yes,
5 years into my training career, it was like, oh, if I conceptualize this as a squat, lunge, push, pull, bend, twist, or in your case, carry, because that's not something I was acquainted with until about a decade into training. So it sounds like you caught on earlier than I did.
Well, it's all the buckets of water, buddy.
Apparently, carry was way more important in your world than mine. But anyway, that being said, you can hit every muscle group you would like to hit with that particular construct. And then you look at that in a macro cycle, periodization wise, and you say, I'm going to squat, lunge, push, pull, bend, twist, carry for stabilization, and then I'm going to improve and progress in that vein. You can go through every phase of training without incorporating, I don't know, single arm row, standing on one leg while dipping with the other. I don't.
On a Bosu ball. Don't forget the Bosu ball.
On a Bosu ball. And while circus tricks can be a lot of fun, and
Yes.
and for some people they can train interesting things. Like one of my primary goals is Ninja Warrior. You never know when they're going to make you jump on a Bosu ball single-legged and Ninja Warrior. But
That's it.
that's very,
You never know when you're going to be walking to the grocery store and there's an audition for the Ninja Warrior.
That's exactly right. And there are a lot of things we could say about that, but I won't digress too far. But when you incorporate those movements and you train toward those and you assess toward those, you really understand not only how your body should move, but it simplifies your workout program significantly to be able to measure yourself on those fronts. So what are you finding when you incorporate this in people's programs?
Oh, it's this, it limits this, what I call mind fatigue, because there's nothing worse than getting to the gym and looking at your program and you have 8 things to do and the pec deck is busy and the squat rack is somebody doing curls. Don't get me started on that. And it's just, it's almost like looking and thinking, man, I got to lose 100 pounds. But something I took from my Russian ancestors and friends, and I'll tell you another story here, is this simplicity. They would get to the gym and they have a single goal. So what they're doing today is they're doing pushes, right? Or maybe they're doing push and pull. And they would take 2 exercises. They would take a deadlift and they would take a bench press. And they're just stupidly would go back and forth between 2 barbells for an hour or 45 minutes, just maxing out. In their case, that was their goal. They wanted to get as strong as possible.
Yeah.
And that's it. And so what I find with my clients, I just pick 2 things for them to do. Right? And we'll say, today we're going to focus on carries and hinges, or that's actually could be taxing because for the grip. So we'll focus on carries maybe and pushes. That's easier.
Forearms after that.
Yeah, that's it. So, the reason I started, as soon as I started doing that for my online clients, I realized, wow, their compliance have went way up. Had gone way up. They just started because they come in and they say, well, I just got to do maybe 10 sets of goblet squats or 8 sets of goblet squats. And I have to do some, for example, incline dumbbell presses. And they do 8 sets and they say, wow, this is awesome. I felt great. They might end up doing 10 sets. Or they might add and do some of their own stuff at the end because they haven't had to go through the fatigue of, oh man, I need to remember these skull crushers. And I need to remember where do I turn? How do I squat? Where do my feet go? Just focus on just fewer things. And how I learned that was from my uncle, actually. That's another guy who I remember visiting his house and that's all he had was 3 kettlebells, okay? I couldn't lift one of them at the time. I was like 8 or 9 years old. And there were 16K, 24K, and 48K, right? So he didn't mess around, you know? And I remember he was probably the biggest guy I've ever seen. He was absolutely huge, tall, loved to fight back when he was younger. But he was working, I don't know the name of the profession in English, but he was transferring money from bank to bank. And Russians didn't have guns, so you had to be physically strong when you pick up the money. And in case you get attacked, right, you have to fight. So he worked well into his 60s, and that's all he did was just these kettlebell workouts. And he would go to these strongman competitions. And the guy never did anything but kettlebells. So overhead press, swings, which would be a hinge, presses would be presses. He did the rows, right? He did squats, rotations with them, and carries. And he would go to these competitions against guys who trained for these strongman movements. And the idea would be there's a beer barrel and that weighs 100 pounds. And you have to lift it over your head as many times as you can. So he would go against these guys who trained, and they would lift it, say, 50 times. But he would come in twice their age and lift it 100. Right? So because he just did basics so well. It's so simple. This was the perfect example for me. And I much like you, I didn't catch on to that. I feel like I'm a slow learner. I'm just admitting this on this podcast. It takes me years to figure out what I already knew. But yeah, it just dawned on me that if I simplify your programs and instead of focusing whether I do 4 sets or 12 sets or 80 sets and just I like to do 4 sets between 10 and 15 repetitions, depending on how I feel. And that's it. There's a reason why Arnold's 3x10 works, right? The people still do it because it works.
Yeah. So
right?
You said something really important there. And you said you noticed when you did this for your online clients that your compliance increased significantly.
Way up.
Now, the people that we're talking to aren't coaches, so they don't know what that means, or probably don't know what that means. And so let me define that. I'm sure you have similarly on my virtual coaching platform, I have a record of each one of my clients' percentage of compliance. So I tell them, hey, I want to do this over the next 4 weeks, or I want to do this over the next 2 weeks, or whatever it is. And this is your program as we've laid out. Now, the perfect program doesn't matter. All the science in the world doesn't matter if you didn't do it.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
So there's a little percentage, and it's the most important thing on anybody's coaching platform, because studies show it doesn't matter what diet you do, doesn't matter what workout program you do, doesn't matter what cardio you do, doesn't matter anything if your adherence is zero, right? So what compliance means is, here's the program. Did you do it? Yes or no? Did you do it? Is there a green check mark in the box, right?
Yes.
So I have clients who have a 30% compliance. Not many of them, because I eventually fire you if you suck that bad and you and I don't mesh that well, right? Because you don't really want what it is you told me you wanted, or now's not the right time. And then I have clients who are like 97% after 4 years of training, like, which is just, that's almost better than my own compliance, right?
Much better than mine, let me tell you this.
I don't even know if I have a 97% compliance to my own program, right? Which, you know, I'm a young dad. I guess there's a lot going on in my world, but I'm not going to make excuses. They're kicking my butt in compliance, right? So anyway, that being said, when you said their compliance went up, what you're saying is, or at least what I'm hearing is, look, you can make a very complicated, powerful program that works your accessories, and you've got the stabilizer muscles, and man, you've got that pec deck pause down, right? Oh, fantastic. Have fun with that. If your compliance is high, that's great. But if your compliance is like 20 or 30% to that program, then that program is not good. I would rather you go, one of my favorite things in my neighborhood here is on leg day, especially if I don't have time to hit the gym, I will push my car up my driveway, which is kind of a hill.
I saw it on Instagram.
I push it up there, and then I walk it back nice and slow, and I do it again. And my neighbors are like, "What is wrong with this dude?" And I'll do that for an hour, like and man, my legs are smoked, and my core is toast, and I got some great cardio in, and I'm done. You know, I'm just done. It's a great leg day. If my program says push car 20 times up the driveway, and I'll do that, versus 4 sets of deadlifts at 8 to 12 repetitions, and leg press, single leg, and then transverse step ups, box jump, single leg, pistol squats, and I don't do that program, then my car program is going to win every time.
100%.
Better results. I'm going to build a better person. And so what I hear from you is that if somebody's not starting their program because they feel it's not complicated enough, it's not scientific enough, or whatever it is, that if they just started with the basic movements and they did 1 or 2 a day for enough volume, then they would see significant results versus not doing anything. Is that kind of the core of one of the things you preach?
I couldn't have said it better myself. This is exactly, just pick one exercise, go to the gym and just do deadlifts. I used to do with my clients, do these, 100 deadlift challenge with a certain weight, that say 70% of their max or 60% of their max weight that they can lift. And they would just pick at it for the whole 45 minutes, because I've been doing 45-minute sessions lately. And at the end of the day, they just love it. And they say, man, what a workout. I was so proud of myself. I lifted this X number of times. And I don't think I've ever heard somebody say, wow, this was an awesome workout. We did 50 exercises, and I just felt so great doing these, remedial shoulder exercise. Nobody ever said that, but they were pumped. I actually trained a kid. And how I learned that also, when I trained a kid from the age of 14 to the age 18, it's so hard to keep his attention, because at that age, he just wants to do everything. And so the best workouts we ever had, like you said, I took him outside in the summer, and I made him push my car in the gym parking lot while I was sitting behind the wheel, and I just did circles. And he, to this day, we talk, and he messaged me, and he remembers those workouts. Oh, when we flipped the tire, stupidly for 1 hour. He absolutely loved those. And I mean, we did plenty of other things in between, but those are the ones he remembers. Those are the ones he wanted to do. And that's what kept him coming.
Now, there's a mental aspect to the simplicity here too, that I think is pretty powerful. And so one of the things you're interested in is the mental side of physical transformation. But one of the things I love about what you're saying here is when you do one thing or two things really well, not only is it, I won't say it's easy, it's very hard work. Not only is it easier from a mental perspective. A client of mine, we like to call it a mashed potatoes workout. That's what we call it. Like when you need comfort food or it's been a really, really stressful, like mashed potatoes is really good, right? When it's been a really stressful, high bandwidth week and work's been really tough on you, maybe you've got some stuff going on at home, you just want to be able to dig into your workout. And I like you use the verb or the adverb stupidly pretty often. I don't even know if you notice it. I flipped a tire stupidly. Like, it doesn't mean you're stupid for flipping a tire. What he's saying is you just get to get lost in this thing that you don't have to think too hard about. You get to be in touch with your body. You get to feel accomplished. And it's a powerful way to exercise. One of the things I like about that is you walk away from that and it's really easy to measure what you did. It's really easy to say, I pushed a car for an hour. Who else did that today? Yeah, suck on that. Or I flipped that tire 500 times, or I deadlifted that weight 100 times. You know, when you can walk away from a workout and very easily feel accomplished because it's easy to measure what you did, as opposed to say, oh, I did great on pull-ups, but not so well on the single leg thing over here. And I did great on this, but I'm not sure how you measure progress in a dumbbell row, whatever. The point is, you get to walk away feeling mentally accomplished. And I've always thought that the feeling that you walk away from your workout with is just as important as the adaptations that you created from that workout. If you walk away feeling beat down, you walk away feeling more fatigued than you walked in. If you walk away feeling like, oh man, that was a bust, then you're much less likely to continue that for the long haul. And the long haul is, you speak from a point of longevity and vitality. I speak from a point of consistency. The long haul is really what I'm in it for my clients, which sounds the same for you. So what are some mental aspects of physical transformation that you're interested in when you tackle this sort of stuff with your clients?
So when it comes to physical transformation, it's important to remember that like any transformation, we're going to have to go through stages there, right? And so what I see in people is that, you know, they start their fitness journey, right? So they start and at first it's hard to start because the goals are just so big. Like you mentioned, you think, man, I am going to have to work out 20 hours a week, right? Now, when you start, you hire a trainer, which I highly recommend. I'm not biased at all in there. You hire a trainer, for example, and you realize, wow, you know, it's not that hard. Then you start, the first few weeks, you get success, okay? Easy success. The first 48 weeks, the maximal adaptation. So you're losing weight, you're feeling good. And then for the next 8 weeks, you encounter such thing that's called a dip, right? I call it a dip anyway. And it's almost like if you imagine climbing a mountain and you climb in that mountain and you can't see the top. There's no way. You're in the process of it and you just climb it. And what happens is, you know, climbing a mountain will be equivalent of having a great diet and doing your workouts. And what I see in people, which is why I wanted to speak with you today, is that people quit way too early because they just go and go and go and go. And they say, well, I've been at it for 6 weeks or 7 weeks. And the results are kind of there, but they're super hard to see. Right now, I'm not getting any bigger arms, and my pants kind of fit the same as they did. And what I see is people give up. They give up right before they hit that peak, they hit the summit. And if they stuck with it for another week, something else would have shifted in their body, something else would have shifted in their hormonal profile, and all of a sudden they would have felt it and seen it. And so what they do is the most often I see is they change something, right? And this is where the Russians are very stubborn people, right? And I think I sort of got that from them, was that they will just go at it and go at it and go at it. Like my uncle doing these overhead presses and swings for years on end, you know, and doing the same. My dad, perfect example. I call it the army workout. Now he's been in the army himself and he's been doing the same warm up despite my advice, despite my recommendations, he's been doing this same army warm-up for the past 8 years. It's the same thing. It looks terrible, but he is doing it. And like what you and I talked about, he's doing it every single day for 10 minutes. And his gym workouts are 45 minutes and his shower time is 10 minutes. It's weird, right? So if people just stuck long enough with what your advice is, with what my advice is, with the program that they have, they would have eventually seen the results. And what happens once you get past that dip and you hit the summit, in the mental sense, everything becomes easy, right? I always speak with my clients who have finished my training and who have gotten the results, and I say, what would you say to yourself? And the most common thing that they tell me is either it's going to suck, but not as much as you think. That's what they tell themselves, before they started. Or they said, I thought it was going to be hard, and it was hard, but it wasn't as bad as I thought. Right? So you're the biggest enemy. Your brain is your biggest enemy. And I talked about it a little bit earlier on the podcast about the signals from your brain rather than from your body. So yeah, that's when it comes to the mental aspects of physical transformation. Be prepared for those things. And just don't quit while it's too early. Just really give it an honest shot. Not like my dad. Don't do the same warm-up for 8. Well, maybe you can. I guess you can if it's working for you.
Better than nothing.
Exactly. I mean, he should change it up. But it's, the guy is crazy. Anyway, that's when it comes to the mental sort of aspect that I see. I mean, there's other things we can talk about another time, things like your pressure from your friends and your family while you actually getting in shape. And I find that's very important. I'm sure you found that as well. You have somebody lose 50 pounds and then their spouse as well, you're looking too skinny. And I mean, that could be a major setback from somebody you love, right? But I'm not going to dip into that.
Yeah, I like to tell people kind of on those lines, because that's exactly right. There's actually research to suggest, especially when it comes to weight loss, it's not a linear decline. You're not like point A, 200 pounds, point B, 150 pounds. Steady decline for 50. They're like, I just need to lose 1 pound a week for the next 50 weeks. Doesn't work like that, right?
Not at all.
That's the average, but that's not how it works. Actually, it seems we do a stair step. It's more like a stair step. Weight loss is more like a stair step. Kind of plateaued, you drop a significant amount, and then you plateau again, and then you drop a significant amount. And that seems to be the way things work for almost everybody from a general population perspective. Anyway, all that to say that from your mental standpoint, when you start a program, and I say this to anybody who's starting a program or is currently working towards something, you're on a journey and you're walking a path. Even walking up a mountain, you don't get the option to just sit down and stop. like life keeps going, the clock keeps ticking. So you're either going to continue to move in the direction you're moving, or you're going to move in a different direction. The question is, will the different direction move you closer to your goal or further away, right? So somebody thinks of it like, I'm starting a workout program. 6 weeks later, I'm not where I'd like to be. Maybe I should stop. It's like, okay, you've been in the stop position before. Obviously, that's not where you wanted to be, or you wouldn't have started to begin with. And your current program, it doesn't seem to be yielding results. The question is, are there any changes that you can make that would point you in a direction that gets you closer to your goal? Or do you need to stay this course? Because if you don't have anything better to do, at least do the best thing you know how to do.
That's it.
Stopping. Because
yeah, that's it.
Well, a mountain's a brutal thing. You stop walking up and eventually you fall down.
You're going down. Right. Yeah, that's it.
So I love that you say that, because the mental aspect of, I feel like this about life. I don't know, maybe you and I resonate on this subject or not. Life to me feels like climbing a mountain, and I don't have any, well, I'm not going down there. So
yeah, that's it.
just going to keep moving. And I do so knowing full well that mountains are hard to climb. Some days are harder than others. I'm just not going to be stopping anytime soon. If I'm not dead, I'm not done. So I say that to my clients pretty often, maybe with regard to your goals, if you aren't seeing the results you'd like to see right now, then something might need to change. But stopping is not an option. You could go backwards. You could take a different path, and maybe that'll take you further from your goal. But clock keeps ticking, bro.
That's it. You can take it. You can set a camp here and maybe just spend a couple of nights, but don't. The only they do say, like, there's no people. A lot of people talk about this maintenance routine. I mean, we're on a physiological level. We're either growing or dying, right? So there's no middle ground. So you're either going up that mountain. I, by the way, love that sort of analogy, or you're going down. You're going up or you're going down. There's no other option. There's no this maintenance. So take a camp. If you need to take a break and just relax for a bit, some people do it in their diet. You go so hard for, 10 weeks and then maybe take a couple of days off and just relax, just replenish your mental energy and then keep moving in the right direction. Because like you mentioned, there are two ways to go. You can either keep eating pizza every day or you can, have some kale once in a while.
Moderate. Yeah.
That's right. That's it.
I could talk to you for a really long time, but believe it or not, we've been at this for an hour.
Wow.
I know, right? Time flies.
Yeah, I know.
We even we have more things on our list worth chatting about, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of wrap things up here and leave listeners with kind of a final thought from Adamovich, said it wrong. Adamovich, the Soviet, Soviet samurai. I'll get it right eventually.
That's okay.
If people don't hear anything else from you today, what would you like to make sure that you leave them with?
So that's awesome. I'll just say, guys, you don't need a complicated system, a complicated ecosystem, to get in shape. You just need the 6 exercises I mentioned, right? You push, you pull, you hinge, you twist, you carry, and your lunge, and just basic nutrition executed well. I don't know what you preach, but for me, is you have your vegetables. 60% of that, then the rest is gonna sort of fall into place. And when it comes to exercise, you just execute those movements ruthlessly, so to speak. You have to be smart about it, but just execute them and don't focus on the minutia, on the small technical details of an exercise, and instead just get it done. Right? For me, if there's something I want to tell to everybody, and there's something that everybody should do more of based on what I see, is less how many sets of deadlifts I have to do today, and whether it's a sumo deadlift or it's a RDL, or a regular deadlift, just do them. It doesn't matter what kind, as long as it doesn't hurt. So that's my thinking, that's my approach, and like I said, I find that clients enjoy that more than having these crazy systems. And when you progress, when you get better, like you and I mentioned, absolutely go for it. Get freaky, get that Bosu ball out and do that handstand on a Bosu ball and post it on your Instagram for everybody to see.
That's right, because Yegor and I are watching, and we want to make sure that we get on there too.
Yeah, that's right. Tag us in it as well.
Tag us. We'll do it with you. You can come push my car with me and throw kettlebells around. Thanks so much for joining me, brother. It's been an awesome conversation. I hope, especially for anybody who's listening who just needs to get started somewhere, I hope that it really speaks to them and gives them the confidence to simplify, put their goals down, and get moving in at least a direction, as opposed to not moving at all. Brother, thanks so much for joining me, man.
No problem. It was an absolute blast.
Awesome. Well, until next time, to the viewers, kick butt and take names.
The free practical advice and conversations here remain unbought and unbiased thanks to the support of listeners just like you. For more information on how you can become a part of the inner circle of Defining Dad Bod, go to definingdadbod.com/inner circle.